We are going live. All right, we're good. We are on. Second shift racing's already checking in. I guess that's Garrett.
What's up?
What's going on?
That heat back there. All right, what's going on, guys? We're back again with Alan Garrett, Brian Crane, and Zach Yasko. Zach is currently out in the midst of Rocky Mountain Race Week. He has his best friend sitting right next to him to make up for that bad air and elevation.
Atmosphere in a bottle.
Atmosphere in a bottle. And how much were you spraying again?
50 horsepower last night, maybe 100 a day.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. So how bad did you drop at elevation?
The car last night was down 0.6. It was down 0.4 first, down in Great Bend, Kansas, but in Pueblo we're down 0.6. But just picked up 5 mile an hour on 50 shots, so probably a little bit more than 50 horsepower.
You spray an extra 50. That's got to be at least another 5, right?
Right.
Is that how that works? And just double it on?
Ricer math indicates that's correct.
There you go. So, guys, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the blowers, mostly about the Whipple, some belt routing stuff and things like that. And then we're going to swing on over to some suspension stuff, and then we'll swing into Holly if we have time. I got a feeling this blower stuff is going to take a little bit because there's quite a bit of information here. So I guess I'll pop up the sweet little slide that Brian gave us, and we'll let Brian start off with everything here because looks like that's his information there. So let me get this going. Oh, crap, what's going on here?
Okay.
We'll get her in a second. Hang on. There we go.
Nice view, though. I'll still look at that car all day.
Well, I get to look at it now, except it's on jack stands. Eventually, maybe it'll make it off those. Jesus. All right, so what we got going on here?
All right, so trying to keep up with somewhat relevant data that is, I guess you can say, that will sink in with most of the community and how their cars are set up. You know, a lot of guys are still on stock ECU. However, I know that, you know, with the recent occurrences, the new, you know, some of the stuff that we've been doing, a lot of guys are switching, which is great. But this is some of the data, and this data has been kind of floating around already. I know that Jared at Lethal had already posted up some of this on their site. But a lot of the questions that we get are what kind of power differences do you see between a Gen 4 and a Gen 5? So this was my preliminary data back when I was stock ECU. Basically, we before on the Gen 4 we had done a couple different pulley combinations, and then with the Gen 5 we did a couple more. But anyway, for the 3-2-5-4 combo, which was a pretty common combo when we go to the track, you know, we were at lower 900s, like 915-ish, but then it picked up to almost 1,000. It picked up over 1,000, up to 1,000, and then over on the 3-2-5-6, which is the max effort combo. I'm not really sure why we didn't pick up a little bit more. It might have been a fuel related issue. I'm not sure, but we picked up about 40 or so. But keep in mind, if you look at the timing, we're 2 degrees less on timing on the Gen 5 than we were in the Gen 4 because of the parasitic loss benefits that are provided by the Gen 5. So if we were to keep that timing in it, you know, the only reason why we took it out of it was because I don't have the money to rebuild a motor every single time I change the blower. So we took a little timing out of it, knowing that's going to be easier to spin, and we were still warranted a ton of gains. And I know that on the next slide, once we proceed to the next slide, I know Alan's got some data too that kind of mimics what we did here. So it's not just my car, it's translating onto other cars as well. And for those that don't know what the motor combo is on this car, it's basically a 10-to-1-4-6, all done by Modular Head Shop. Ported heads. It's got a stage 4 cams, which are like, I believe, a 232, 236 duration with the 4E lift. Nothing crazy. They're not too big, not too small, somewhere middle of the road. Boost for, or when it comes to boost between the Gen 4 and the Gen 5, you're seeing basically the same boost. And this is a non-race ported Gen 5 at the time. We have since gone race ported Gen 5, but this is data with a non-ported Gen 5 and a non-ported Gen 4 Whipple crusher. So basically you can expect, if you're changing from the Gen 4 to the Gen 5, it's easier to make power. You don't have to run as much timing to make more power. But if you want to put it on kill, you can leave that timing alone, and you can bring that power up even more. But everyone wants to focus a lot on boost, but really how hard, boost is just a measurement of restriction. From setup to setup, especially when you get into ported heads, custom cams, degreeing, blah, 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 you're going to see different boost levels for different combinations. So, a lot of us, we go off of blower speed, which is your lower pulley diameter divided by your upper pulley diameter multiplied by engine RPM. And that gives you an RPM of the actual blower speed. And that's telling you how hard the blower is actually working. So when we're talking some of this data, just keep in mind, boost is boost, but what my car makes for boost, or what Zach's car makes for a boost, or what Daniel's or Alan's makes for boost, it's all, it'll do what it's going to do, but the blower speed doesn't change. So,
exactly. And it looks like all your data there is based on what, 6,700 to 7,000 RPM?
Yeah, this was back with stock ECU. So, he's shutting it off 68, 69, 7,000, depending. So basically I calculated for the blower shut off speed, I calculated it off of what the dyno graph, where you could see it drop off where he shut it off. So, in some cases, some may be higher or lower than others, but only by a couple hundred RPM, not, just a little bit of variation, nothing too crazy. But
gotcha. We'll head over to this next slide real quick.
Yeah, and this is Alan's right here, so you can get into that.
Yeah, so the beauty about this slide is it shows the 2.9 Gen 4. I ran that combo a lot. We'll start with the pulley combo. Obviously the boost, 325 and the 8.6 inch, that is a 4-pound lower. Registered right at 25 on the gauge on the dyno. All this stuff was done on a mainline hub dyno, same dyno, 2 years apart, same weather conditions. I'd have to go back. They use a little bit different correction factor, but for all intents and purposes, I've got all the logs. But you'll notice the G4 horsepower is 928. That was right at 25 pounds, 20.5 degrees in it. That was on C85, and the peak horsepower came in right at 6,700. That same boost combo on the dyno here a couple weeks ago, some of the people have probably seen my videos, and I was experiencing some belt issues, which we'll get into later. It made 26 pounds and it made 995. And just like Brian's saying, I had almost 3 degrees, 2.5 degrees less timing in it. But the difference between the 2.9 Gen 4 and the Gen 5, well, I really don't have any data on the Gen 5 with the stock ECU. It's the first time I've dynoed it. It's on the Holly now, but no engine change combos, no cam degree, changes. It went from making basically peak power at 6,700 and it shifted it all the way to right to 7,700. So that's a benefit of the, the standalone. I didn't make any other changes. The timing's less aggressive. So here's something I wanted to touch on too. So you've got this next line down. It's a 325 and a 9.1, like Brian said. It made 27.1 pounds. This was the G4 and it made 955, I think 836. I'd have to go back and look at the sheets. They don't send me the files since it's a main line. They got a proprietary viewer. They just send kind of printout. So, but again, it had 20.5 in it and it made peak power at 6,700. So here's the cool part between these two blowers. So you got the G5. I've got track data logs and you can see it here in the next slide if you want to click over real quick, Daniel. This is a boost curve from last weekend. Basically, the blue line is boost. This is a race ported G5. As you can see, it pretty much climbed the whole pass. It ended at 27.5. I took this exact marker at 7,200 RPM. I'm usually shifting the car at 77 to 78 now, and it's still seeing 27.5 there. It really doesn't climb up anymore, but it'll tip in probably 25 and climb all the way to 27.5. So we can click back though if you want to.
Yeah. So how much were you actually gaining from your 6,700 to your 7,700? Did you say that?
I would have to go back and look at the actual graph here. If you give me a second, I can go snag it here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious just because I know a lot of people are going to want to see 6,700 to 6,700 data.
Right.
Kind of, apples to apples here. But I'm going to assume that it's probably picking up a little bit over 6,700 with the Holly.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at this graph right here to make sense of it. We were making it about 940 at 6,700 RPM. So, and what's cool is I don't know if you've seen the videos too. I even spun this thing up around 85, and it wasn't dropping like a rock. It kind of tapered off at 77, 78, and it kind of held its own. It wasn't like it was, you get your stock PCM drop, but.
Interesting. Where did you go peak timing at on that anyways, on both of them? Are they both about?
It's probably right off the gate, like $4,000, 3,500, $4,000. I'd have to look at that. So, but it's not, I keep it pretty lazy down low. That's part of it.
In other words, you got the same timing at 6,700 as you do at 7,700.
And there's some stuff built into the tune to where if it, drops boost, it'll keep it there to a certain level. And that's something you can set up in the timing tables. Because I actually ran into a belt slip on the dyno, and some people seen those videos, and it made 978 on 24 pounds, but I had the timing come up to 21. So
yeah, that's kind of how I got mine set up too, Alan. It's like when we ran the 875 earlier in the year, we were experiencing belt slip because we were having, long story short, we had to go back to an 8-rib setup. We were having issues with the 10-rib alternator pulley, so we had to go back to 8-rib, and didn't have the right belt tension on at the time, and it was peaking 26 and dropping to 23 above like 6,500. But how we got the timing table set up, if it's going to slip, we got it to add timing as the boost drops. So that way, it's still back half 36 mile an hour. It's not because it's because of the timing that we had into it. So, but
I'll go over like Brian did with my motor. I mean, obviously it's a mainline hub dyno. It's a race ported Whipple, 9-to-1 Texit. It's got stock 4-thread heads on it. It's got comp 106 460s, stage 3s, if you want to call them. I've got my own degree specs in them. And like I touched on, stock ECU was the Gen 4, and I went to the Holly this year. So unfortunately, I don't really have any solid stock, stock 2.9 Gen 4 ECU to Gen 5 data. Based off time slips, I think they are very close minus the RPM range, but I would sacrifice power at this point.
yeah,
With the Holly now, it's amazing. But like I said, on the dyno, I was down about 1.5 pounds on the dyno. So realistically, pulley combo to pulley combo, if you're comparing 3.254 on a 2.9 Gen 4 to a 3.254 on a Gen 5, you're probably looking at a modest 75 horsepower. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some variables in there, obviously, with the race port that's going to add some a little bit of power. That's up for debate, 20 to 30. Some say 50, but yeah, we're going to harp on this alternator and belt routing stuff. But if you have something that's working fine, don't touch it. You know what I'm saying? But as you can see, this boost line, which is, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 gears here with the red RPM. And the blue line is obviously boost. You can see it going up the whole time. It never drops. There's no belt slip with this combo or anything. So,
Alan, do you have any smoothing in that line at all, or no?
No, that's just straight out of the Holly. I think some of it is the dirt road we have here too.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because my boost line, or my on the next, I think it's like the next slide or two, you'll see my kind of boost line, and I got smoothing in mine, but it's not. You can clearly see the how it starts off lower and then you have a higher towards the end of the RPM.
I mean, I can go in and look at it here in a minute too. I haven't touched any of those smoothing settings in any of the data logs yet.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Interesting. So now we got some belt sizing up pulled in, and I'm assuming this is with the stock routing, correct?
Stock routing, 8 rib. We get, between the four of us, we get a ton of questions on, what belt size should I go with? And a lot of guys that are kind of new to this, they don't understand how many different factors dictate a belt size. Obviously your lower pulley size, your upper pulley size are the two main contributing factors, but what snub idler do you have? Is it a billet flow? Is it a Metco? What are your idler sizes? If you have the Metco kit, where is the lower idler at on your Metco bracket? Is it on the lower spot, the middle spot, upper spot? Depending on the different generation Metco bracket you have, and then what size is your alt pulley? I mean, all these have a ton of effect on it, but what I wanted to do with this particular slide was have, a general go-to consensus or a general go-to part number with the different pulley sizes. And this is with 390 or 100 millimeter idlers, 190, a 3-inch alternator pulley, and then on the lower bracket of the Metco, or the lower bracket, the idler in the lower bracket is on the upper position. These are the particular part numbers that has worked for me. And what I've experienced in the past is if you change your upper or your lower, a good rule of thumb is that you're going to see about a 1/2 inch difference in belt sizing, plus or minus, whether you go with a bigger or smaller pulley. So I've given out this particular graph to a lot of people and, kind of relayed that same information. And it's worked well so far. So word of advice is if you're trying to figure out your belt sizes, if you go by this, buy the size you think is right, then buy the upper, the size above it, and then the size below it, just to be safe.
Yeah, just cover your bases.
Yeah.
And here's something too on belt sizing real quick, and swapping from a 2.9 Gen 4, and I think you remember this, to a Gen 5, that's a 1/2 inch difference. The blower snout actually sits lower.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So you'll go to throw your belt on and it'll be super loose, but you'll need to tighten that up. It's a 1/2 inch difference in the belt on the chart, not the actual corresponding number. 810 to 816 doesn't mean a 1/2 inch. You need to go into the belt chart and actually look at the length. So, but it's a 1/2 inch smaller belt.
Yeah. So
Interesting. Well, here we are. We got the race ported blower versus the non-ported. Kind of see what they're doing.
Zach, can you hear us?
I think he's muted.
He's loud. Muted. You're muted.
I think he muted himself. I can't hear him.
He's fine. He's probably got a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, he's probably got a bunch of cars behind him. Do you want to? When you guys want to? Y'all want to go over the race ported versus non-ported? Obviously, it's kind of easy to see, but
right. So this is these are pictures that Zach had provided. So basically, what they're doing with these G4 and G5 race ports is the two circled areas. You can see the amount of stock or the amount of mass that has been removed out of the back of the case. So when you hear race port, it's not so much the inlet that goes from the back of the blower to your intake tube. It's more or less here in the back of the case. You can see where they're removing stock top and bottom, especially in the bottom where they're taking out that huge chunk of material and thinning it out and making it more uniform to, the rest of the back or the backing area.
That's a crazy amount of material too.
It is. And I think that that's a Gen. Yeah. That bottom area, there was some, and some people may be concerned with, if you thin that out too much, you might get some flex or whatnot, but we haven't seen any of that. Everything's been pretty good. So
good deal.
Now, what you'll see here, non-ported versus race ported, and I apologize. I wish that my boost reference line was a little bit lighter so you can see. But the top one is, for instance, back when, the numbers that I was speaking about earlier on the first slide. This is a graph pulled from that, and then you can see it peaks 25.4 pounds, but towards the end of the pull, we're reducing by about 1.5 pounds. And that's not due to belt slip. That's not due to anything else. It's just due to, you got all that air coming in and you got to make that turn. We need to open up the back of that casing. So down on the next picture, you can see that the boost on the same exact pulley combo, it remains exactly linear. We're not seeing any dips or dives or anything like that. Everything is pretty much straightforward from, as soon as we tip in, get full load all the way to the end. So for those that are wondering what you may see with a race ported version versus a non-race ported version, I would say a general rule of thumb, honestly, we picked up about 30 horse, 30 torque with the race port. So, and we also picked up a pound of boost due to the extended, more airflow that we could actually push through the motor. So is it worth it? If you got the money, absolutely. I everyone that's asked me, I would say just do it. It's we picked up both at the track and on the dyno with it, and and Alan, you were running at the beginning, you were running standard versus race too, so you picked up a little bit of mile an hour with it too, right?
Yeah, my car was going 155, 156. Then we got the blower back, and it started popping off 157s, random 158, and 1,200 foot DA, 1,000 foot DA, which is pretty average for here. It's not mine shaft or cold, but 65 to 70, 75 to 80 is our normal race conditions here. So, and I experienced the same thing. Anywhere, and I didn't have a Holly then, but you could obviously see it on my my ghetto logging system I had. But,
the most efficient logging system I've ever seen in my life.
It works, but if anybody doesn't know, that's why I GoPro all my passes, because I had some junk laptop that would never work right, and I was too lazy to go out and get one. But you could pull the GoPro footage up and look at the wideband, the boost, and everything else on the screen. So that's why I had most of those gauges built in. But I'll basically say the same thing you did. Probably pound and a half boost gain. I went from about 25.5 to 27, which is exactly what I'm seeing this year on the same pulley combo. Then about a mile, I would probably say a tenth. The 1500s out the back, and anywhere from 1.5 to 2 mile an hour. So, which is usually what I pick up when I add 2 pounds of boost to the car. I usually pick up about 2 mile an hour. So,
gotcha. Now, was that with the same belt routing on that, Brian, on both those?
Yes.
Good deal.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Now, since we're talking about belt routing, here's the new alternator relocation that these guys are doing. You guys want to touch in on that?
I kind of want to pat Zach on the back for this, because I had no intention on doing it until he, brought it. He's like, well, why don't you just do this? You're having all these issues with, a 10 rib pulley on the stock location alternator. Cause I run a Nations, and they don't make, it was too expensive to have them run a one-off, and I couldn't find anything that would work otherwise. So he's the one that really put it in my ear. I know that this isn't new. I know other guys like Joey and a couple other guys have done this in the past. So this isn't new, but now that dudes are really pushing these cars with the blowers, and you're starting to see that flex in the alternator, starting to see the flex in the bracket and this and that, it's starting to become more and more important that, if you don't have your AC or you don't care about it, I would remove it ASAP and go this way, because ever since going this way, we haven't had the belt tracks dead straight, and we'll get into some videos here shortly. Alan was able to get some GoPro footage, of his before the relocation and after the relocation, and man, oh man, if that don't make you want to switch, I don't know what will. That it's just perfect. The belt just tracks perfectly.
Yeah, that's why I try to tell people, if you've eliminated your tensioner as an issue, 9 times out of 10, your alternator bracket is the reason you have belt issues, either alternator alignment or a flex bracket.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And mine had flexed so much that it took me 20 minutes to get the 15 millimeter long bolt out of the mount. Yeah. That's how much it had flexed.
Oh, dang. So it bent the bolt, basically.
Yeah, it bent the bolt.
Holy crap.
So,
I mean, in the video, you can tell the belt's
track.
jumping on and off. So
yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, if you end up going this route, MMR makes the bracket readily available. Got mine in a couple days, and it accepts 9904 GT, 0304 Mach 1, 96 and the 98 Cobra, which is the one that I got on mine. Anything that's not 0304 Cobra for modular motor will fit in this location. And if you run, which most of the alternators will come with a 2.6-inch alternator pulley, you're going to need a 1-inch shorter belt, which is a K060950 for the part number. And your inner drive is all set. Your route's exactly the same. Just need a slightly shorter belt, and that's it. You will have to extend your power cable to your alternator. You will have to extend that or replace that so it can go across to the other side, and then extend. If you don't run a Nation's external regulator, you're going to have to run your plug that plugs into the internal regulator. You have to extend those wires across as well. So a little bit of modification, but honestly, when it's all said and done, the benefits outweigh that.
Hey, Brian, you want to touch on the stuff you have to modify up there on the pulley bridge, since you walked me through that?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Is that on the next slide? I think possibly. No,
yeah. So, for this
There it is,
particular routing, so we have 2 different routings that have worked. Zach's got his that's worked very, very well. And then, Zach did his at the same time I did mine, and I decided to end up keeping the Metco bracket and all the other pulleys. The one thing that I had to modify to do this on the pulley bridge was the one stud that comes out above the pulley here down on the bottom. I had to cut that off and then shave down the top of the bolt, so that way there was plenty of clearance for, the belt and the pulley, all that stuff, because you're not routing the belt downward on that pulley. Now you're routing it upward. So you got to make sure that it clears anything that's in the way of that. Now, Alan, you have the power steering reservoir still in that location, right? Yep. Okay.
So it does clear. There's no issues with that power steering bracket, keeping it in that location. You kept the stud in yours.
Yep.
I actually removed the stud and put a washer stack up behind the pulley bracket and went to Ace and got a really small head bolt. So it clears by about 1/8 an inch.
Mm-hmm.
Testament to the belt routing, it hasn't touched it. Like, the belt looks brand new after that.
Yeah.
So it's not moving around at all. Even though that's not a grooved idler, a lot of people think you need a grooved idler there.
Yeah, that's what we thought at first, but then gave this a shot and it ended up working. So yeah, everything. If your belt routing is good, you laser align everything and everything tracks perfectly, you're not going to have any issue. And a lot of that is you're reducing the belt length from an 81-inch area down to a 67-inch. You're getting less stretch. You don't have to worry about the thing walking around as much. You don't have to worry about overspinning the alternator as well. If you change your lower pulley, you can change your lower pulley to a 20-pound lower. I mean, it doesn't matter. And you won't overspin that alternator now. But anyway, so if you wanted to keep all your idlers, you want to do something like this is kind of what me and Alan did. On the next slide, Zach can get into his, but his is a much more simpler, I feel.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm probably going to do right here. I like the idea of this, of doing away with the idlers. Have you had any problem with that, Zach? His audio is cutting in and out. Is what they're saying. Yeah,
basically, in short, he only runs the 90-millimeter Metco idler right next to the tensioner there, and he eliminated all the idlers, the Metco lower bracket, the snub idler, all that. And to my knowledge, he hasn't had any issues with slip or anything like that. So this is a far more simpler setup, and that even reduces the length even more to like a 61-inch neighborhood. We're giving general sizes just because every case is different. But
is that 10 rib or still 8 rib on his?
He's got the 10 rib on his.
Okay, so that's why it looks fatter. So I didn't know.
If you go back a minute, Daniel. Something I wanted to touch on too. That pulley by the power steering reservoir has to be a 90. Cannot be 100. You might be able to pull 100 off with Brian's car, but you cannot pull 100 off with that power steering reservoir there. It needs to be a 90.
Yep.
You talking about this one right here, the bottom?
Yep. That's got to be a 90 if that power steering reservoir is installed. Otherwise, the 100 will hit it'll hit the bottom of the belt will hit the bottom of the power steering bracket.
Interesting.
Zach just said he's got his audio down. That's why he can't.
Oh, so he's got nothing then.
He's got nothing then, yeah. Damn Rocky Mountain Race Week people.
I know it. People doing crazy stuff, trying to be in the mountains. But Alan Joyner also does the same belt routing as well. I don't know if you guys know him or not, but he does the exact same thing, and he's had zero issues. I talked to him about that today.
Good. Oh yeah.
Here's the
Here's
video, but it's linked to YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a different one because I got a feeling if I play that, we're going to drop down real bad. I can actually put the link over here and for you guys to see it as well, so you can look at it whenever you want. Copy this link. Hope it don't take you to some porno sites.
No.
So we'll do this right here. And there goes the belt. See you later.
Yeah, you can really see it down on the pulley down by the crank there. You can see, you know, every time he shifts a gear or it changes load, you can see the thing move back and forth.
I mean, it's literally jumping off the pulley every time he hits a different gear.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of backstory about this particular video. So this was after my first outing on the Holly. The very first outing, I had very good data logs. Like I said, 27.5 pounds, stock tensioner. This is a 325 upper, 4-pound lower. This was a previous good known setup that went 9.0s height 90s last year. At the end of the year, I didn't change anything. So after that first week at the track, I was like, hey, I'm going to throw this Roush on and maybe I get some back-to-back data. Threw the Roush on, laser aligned everything looked good. Went to the dyno, and I think I went through 3 belts and 3 hits on the dyno. Couldn't figure it out. Came home and said maybe it's the Roush tensioner or something's going on. So went back to this good combo, and something told me, I was like, hey, you know, I do a lot of helmet video and GoPro cam stuff between mountain biking and snowmobiling. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna stick a GoPro here. I just got a GoPro sticky on the back of the the tank here, and lo and behold, it came off. But you know, it's gonna be kind of hard to see it in the stream here, but you can copy, obviously look at this link, go in and put it in high res. It should be in 2.7K or 1080, but you can really see a lot of stuff going on. But I mean, this is a brand new belt, laser aligned, everything, and it was going away at the beginning of first and second. So
All right, and this is after he relocated. Again, I'm going to just copy the link and put it over here in chat so you can see it in better quality.
Yeah, just pay attention to that bottom idler. That's the biggest thing. You can see
and
everything.
something else I want to touch on too. So you're going to see this tensioner moving up and down, obviously. So this tensioner is set in the same exact spot. If most of you know where your tensioner mark is, I keep the belt right on the upper tight side. So it's not out of range. This is not an overly tight belt. I don't have to take idlers off or anything, but it takes some ingenuity to get it on. But watch how much less the belt is stretching, and that is simply belt length. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look at that belt. It's rock steady.
Yeah.
Zach, you need to
That's
put a
right.
GoPro on yours.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to see what Zach's looks like going down the racetrack. See if that right side's doing any flapping, considering it's a long straight.
Right. Yeah, because when me and Zach talked about, because we were doing this at the same time, the only reason why I went the route that I did was because of that concern right there. But he hasn't had any issues either. So maybe it's not as big of a deal as we thought. So again, we're all kind of just trying new things and seeing what works.
And I've slowed this video down a couple times too by myself, because obviously I have the raw clip. There's a little bit of flutter as the clutch locks up. There's a little bit of flutter here on the back side of the belt below the tensioner. If you play it, you can see it, but it calms down. That's the only time it does it. It doesn't walk off the crank anywhere or the tensioner. But it, like I said, I drove it probably, made 6 passes last weekend, had clutch issues, so I only made 2 full hits, and 4 I missed second gear. The clutch went out, but and I've got about 75 street miles on it since then. There's 0 belt dust anywhere on the idlers. It looks like I just on and clean the engine bay. So
now when you're on the 2-step or whatever, do you guys mess with the timing? Have you noticed any difference in the belt and how it's hitting? It's flapping around on different timing or not? Have you even looked at that?
No, because Alan hasn't ran a two-step. I think I'm the only one that runs one because I got the Black Magic.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I haven't. I wish I might fab up something to do an underhood video like this. I'd be curious to see as well.
And I plan on to keep doing these videos. I just got some 10 reb stuff from Metco, so I'm gonna do some legit back-to-back comparisons. Between 8 and 10 rib, because I'm still a believer 10 rib is awesome, but I think obviously I'm getting it done on 8 rib, and this is a standard 8, standard black Gates belt. It's not even an RPM belt. It's not a green belt. It's a stock tensioner with a Metco brace. So it's working. It's not, you guys seen the data logs. It's working. It's not slipping. So I'm
going to try the Roush. Are you going to try the Roush tensioner?
Obviously, people know about the spring differences. If you don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, the stock one's 30-ish. The Roush comes in at about 60.
It's like double, I think. Yeah.
I did not know that. Good information.
And which is basically, it's unrivaled as far as spring pressure. The ARS out there is the only thing that's really that close, which is 60-ish, unless you're doing something custom.
Right. And then the Roush is, I believe, $130 to $150, where if you go into some of these other billet ones, you're spending a couple $100. So, I mean.
Yeah.
But this just shows you, you don't, if you decide to do this, or even with your alternator in a stock location, if your stuff is lined up, it's going to work even with the stock tensioner. So.
All right. Heath is saying they're going to put a GoPro on Zach's to get some video.
Yeah, that'd be good. I just want to see what that right side's doing. Like you said, Daniel, that's going to be interesting to see.
That's what I want to know too.
Topo cars and stuff with that routing too. And some other ones, just some boats with that routing, like some supercharged boats with routing that's really simplified too. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, the Roush isn't billet SVT, Troy. It's not billet. It's just cast, just like the other ones.
And a concern is some guys, especially I think Dan and a couple other people we know have broke these Roushes. And
really,
they broke these Roush tensioners, and we don't know what happened. We don't know if there was a casting change or a bad batch or whatever else, but I'm not talking bad about them. But if anybody's seen the damage, what happens when you break one of these tensioners on load, you're looking probably at a pulley and minimum at a lower, probably your tensioner pulley. And you better hope it fucking doesn't get a hold of any coolant lines or anything, because then you have problems.
Yeah, that'd be a nightmare.
So, just choose wisely, I guess, if it's working.
Stay away from my hood.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of that, all this belt issues finally got my hood last week, so I've got a nasty fiberglass crack that I'm gonna have to deal with, or just get a new hood. So
yeah, my stock hood before I switched to the VFN, I got slapped a couple times and it was ugly. So, but yeah, I mean, with my Roush in particular, I know Zach runs a Roush too. I've had the same Roush on the car for a year and a half now, with no issues. So again, it's case by case. I think that this year, after Alan has relocated everything and, Dan has worked on some of his stuff, I don't suspect you're going to see as much of these failures with the Roush.
Yeah. And just realize too, with the bigger spring pressures with like a Roush, that's when all my issues started, is because it flexed the mount that much.
Right.
My car went from perfectly fine to like, what just happened? I was like, what am I doing wrong here? So
I didn't think about that, because you put that Roush on, you started having issues. That didn't make no sense to me, but it was pulling that bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe that bracket's that weak though. I mean, it doesn't look that weak, but
I just think honestly, I think I said this to Chris Ridge, I think it's 2 to 3 years of racing now, 200 plus passes on a stock mount. It's just finally taking its toll, and they're clapped out. You could probably shin them, but they're just moving under load. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, SVT Dan says those those tensioners are like $500-600 for a Gucci ARS.
Yeah, it is. They work though, and I know we're running late on touching on belt stuff, but there's a guy named Steve. He's the first person here that I know of that's got a 3.0 and a 4 to work with no slip, up to 7,500 RPM, making 32 pounds on a Gen 5. So,
oh wow,
the ARS works, and that's a stock location alternator car too. So they definitely work. They stand
Interesting.
behind the product and they work.
I didn't know it was stock location on the alternator.
Yep.
I know who you're talking about though. He was in the Gen 5
Pounds,
Whipple group.
7,500 RPM and hasn't had any slip with it. So
Interesting. All right, so we're gonna stop there with blower stuff unless you guys have some questions over here, and then we'll probably actually let me see this next slide. I haven't looked at the new and updated, improved Brian slide here. There it is, suspension. So we're gonna move over to suspension real quick. I know we're running a little bit behind a little bit there, and we'll probably stop with suspension, to be honest. I don't think we'll get to Holly today. That'll be another day probably.
Yeah.
I mean, the blower stuff, there's a lot of in-depth information there. I know a lot of you guys appreciate that. I'm seeing a lot of good comments over here about it. I guess Zach still don't have it. Yeah, he's gone.
Zach keeps cutting in and out. I wonder if it's just because of where he's at, you know?
Yeah, they said he's having bad connection issues. That stinks. But hopefully he gets that video for us all, because I really want to see that belt.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll jump into the suspension stuff real quick. We'll let Brian start this off with the radio versus slick, because he's had both on the car. And then we got the king over here, Garrett, going down dirt roads. So if you got slick, we got you covered.
yeah.
So, all right, this disclaimer before we get into any of this. So, you know, depending on who you ask, there's a lot of different opinions on suspension. I'm coming to find that out a lot, especially going to a radial. A lot of people like to go a lot of different directions, and there's so many variables because a radial is so picky, because you don't have that that soft sidewall to, you know, hide a lot of bullshit. Hey, there's
Let me
that.
get off this one.
There he is.
Zach, sir, what's up? He went back to the phone. He's got it.
Yeah,
So,
back to the phone. I gave up on the other.
yeah,
There we go.
all
All
right.
right, go ahead there, Brian.
All right. So again, this is what in this particular slide, you know, these are two photos of my car. This is, you know, kind of what I've done that's worked for me. Again, disclaimer, it may not work exactly for you. I could give any of you guys out there my exact suspension card, and it's gonna, you won't, it may not replicate. You gotta, the only way to dial in your suspension properly is to go out and do it. We can put you in the right direction, but like me and Alan went back and forth for shit, like all last season, going back and forth, and we tried each other's combinations, and neither of us had success with each other's combinations. And I mean, granted, Alan drives on like a dirt track, and you know, we're blessed with a little bit more better tracks down here. But we, you know, that just goes to show a lot of you guys know that Alan's car and my car are very similar in a lot of ways. And if we can't replicate each other's settings, you know, between one another, that just shows you, you know.
Are y'all both running the exact same shocks and struts though?
We were.
Front.
On the front, wait, do you run Crusaders on the front, Alan?
No, I run Warriors up front, but I got Crusaders with AM valving out back.
That's the difference. Okay, yeah, because I'm on a you know, we're both on stock location Team Z Springs, but I'm on just a standard Warrior in the back. So there's some slight valving differences there, but we're on the same struts up front, same spring rate up front. But anyway,
the Warriors are actually keeping your tire plan. I'm surprised on that.
It's, you know, where we're at with suspension, we're pretty close to needing a revalve or going to a Crusader or something along those lines. We're maxed out on compression, both front and rear. On the front, we're somewhere in the middle for the front, and that works really well. But for the back, we're starting to creep up towards the max turns on the rebound. So for the radial, at least. So the car was, you know, the suspension was much happier on a slick, not only for body roll, but for, you know, control of the shocks and struts. Getting the radial to behave properly is taking more out of the suspension for sure. But in short, what we've done with my car in particular, with the radial, we're trying to get the body to rise, the back tire to kind of press down into the track and hold there. And you can see with the arrows, the tire will kind of come down and it'll plant, and then the body will come up, and then the front will kind of come up at the same time as the body. And that seems to be working for us. So for us to achieve that with my particular car, we've done full tight on the compression on both the front and the back. And like I said, in the front, we're somewhere in the middle. We have 19 clicks with these Warriors. We're somewhere in the middle, 10 to 12 range. And then in the back, we started off in the 10 to 12 range, but now we're creeping up to the 14 to 16 range to get it to be under control. So we're like I said earlier, we're probably going to be needing something in the back. The front controls very, very well, but the back's going to need some help.
Gotcha.
Now for the slicks, which was way easier.
Yeah.
We're just looking for weight transfer. We want the back to come up and the ass to stay down, and it's just everything was much easier going to a slick or riding with the slick. For the front, we were at, I think we were in the middle of the road, both compression and rebound, back when this picture was taken. But for the rears, we were somewhere, like I believe 8 clicks on the compression, and then on the rebound, because you don't want the ass to bounce, you want it to stay down. We were somewhere in the 12 to 14 neighborhood on the rebound. So basically, you just want you want to go opposite of what you do for a slick for a radial. And then Zach also transitioned from a slick to a radial too, so he can chime in on what's worked for him as well.
Yeah, my back end with the slick is pretty simple. I mean, I was literally 50-50 on the rear shocks. I run the small tire valve strange, they're 10-way on each side, 10-way compression, 10-way rebound, and they're small tire valve by the Team Z. But I would run them on a slick about 50-50 with my lower bars basically level, and it kind of really kept the car happy and neutral in the rear. And I ran the front end really, really loose up front, like 3 clicks on my strange 10-ways, and that seemed to really like it. I was able to knock out a 133 on the slick. Haven't quite matched yet on the radial, but we're getting close. Trying to figure things out on the radial so far. We're running a lot more compression on the rear of the radial and a lot less rebound. We found it likes that. A lot tighter on the front too. I'm up to 7 on my strange 10-ways on the front, and I'm running travel limiters now since I'm not running a good strut. They kind of helps band-aid my poor strut up front. I got them kind of tight as well. I think I've only got like 4 inches of travel on the front.
Yeah.
It's a strange, just like ours, where you're getting your number, the 7 number, you're getting that from 0 all the way loose, right?
Yes, 0's
like,
full loose.
Yeah, see, on AFCO, a lot of people, they do it different. They go from full tight. So when they give you numbers,
they
keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Alan, what you got with this?
Man,
dirt road. What's the dirt road like?
I've experimented, and Brian and I's settings are somewhat close in a sense, but the front stayed the same. So I run 12 and 12. So if you've got a dual adjustable in the front, that's been a game changer to keep the car settled down on the shifts, especially, if you're a little off that day, the car's not going to be transferring like a seesaw back and forth. I noticed my car come way down. Once you keep that compression tight and that front dips down on the shift, it just kind of keeps the front end up in the air. But I pretty much run 12 and 12 in the front right now with my Crusaders. It's a 14-inch 175 spring. Then in the rear, I think I started at the beginning of the year at I think 10 compression, 6 rebound, and I'm at 10 and 10 last now, and stumbled upon something. I was adding a little more tire pressure, and it went 130. I went a 138 on a hard tire track night here last weekend. So, which is no slipper, still RXT. But it just, when you talk suspension, you just don't make you don't go from 10 to 15 or 5 to 10 on a rebound. It's 2 clicks at a time here and there, and maybe tweak the tire pressure a little bit, but don't go from one end to the other, or you'll get lost and document it all. But they're pretty much all the same. As far as with the slick, obviously we talk about the back down. What you don't want is excessive squat, because you've got to control that event when the suspension rebounds, and that's where rebound comes into play, or what you want to call it, extension. There's 2 ways to look at. People call it extension, and they also call it rebound. So, and that's where some people get confused with the shocks too. It's like you look at Brian's car, it's raising the body. That's actually rebound. That's extension. So it's because it's actually extending the shock. It's making the shock travel longer. But yeah, I just try to keep the gap between the wheel itself and the wheel well the same. And you try to prolong that event to an extent. And with the front, as the car moves out, if you like Zach's car is totally different. It might like the front end coming up really fast. That car doesn't. I kind of keep it slow. That way you can basically control that weight to the rear. I think the best my car has been up here is 134, and that's with an RXT. I think I'm kind of onto something now. I'm putting the Black Magic in this week, 2-step and all that good stuff. I've got some really good data from Brian. So
here comes the 8s.
What's that?
But here comes the 8s.
Yeah.
Come play with the king, but yeah, it's just I can't just beat on enough. Just make slow steps at a time. My car's at 10 and 10. I mean, 10 and 8 work good. 10 and 6 work good. 10 and 12 does work good for Brian. 10 and 14, 8 and 12. I mean, it's that pretty much everything is within 2 clicks. Once you find a sweet spot, you stay within 2 clicks on compression and rebound, or creep up and down on that number.
Somebody wants to know the future of radio on your car, Alan. I think I can go ahead and say probably not.
Well, I've got a set of pro bracket radios here that got 6 passes on them from a buddy. I'd really like to get the car in the low 1.3s.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wouldn't be scared of them because we've been dealing with 140 plus track temps all week, and I've been able to manage with the pro bracket radios too. A lot of it's how hard you hit the tire. I mean, if you can back off the hit of the tire, you can get away with it a little more.
Yeah. And I'll just pull a ton of counterweight, not weight, but base pressure out of it and let it go and play with launch RPM. But I want to get out and get the car back in the 8s on the slick. That's the goal. Then, kind of I've got some more power to throw at it, but get it back in the 8s at 880s, low 890s at 158, 160, and I'll be happy. Then we'll start looking at pro bracket radio stuff.
So are you guys, when you hit the tire, are you keeping all the power in the car and then yanking the power out and then ramming it back in real quick to keep the tire planted or not?
No, sir.
Nope, all through the clutch.
Yep.
Old slippers.
And me, I just lower engine RPM. That's what I found. It doesn't work for me. If I get to points where I can't get the car into 1.3s, I just lower the launch RPM.
That could be a thing with the radial or the slicks, because you got to keep that tire spin going a little bit.
Yeah. Back when I was RXT, I would hold my RPM. I wouldn't do like the rev. I would just hold it. And then as soon as the light would drop, it would just literally be clutch out floor, like just that straight transition. I just hold it, and that's all I would do. I wouldn't try to sidestep it, wouldn't slip it, wouldn't do anything. And that worked for me. So, I mean, everyone's got a different driving style, but
yeah.
I mean, I've never pulled power out of the hit. And then, with the Black Magic, we're obviously we're launching up the 2-step at full power wherever I'm launching at, and it's just blows through it in first and holds the rest of the way. So
yeah, interesting. What about the on your pro bracket radials, Zach? Have you ran the pro radials or no?
No, we're just on the pro brackets.
Yeah, how are you running those things?
17.5 so far this week.
What about you, Brian? Why are you running those?
Ooh.
I have no idea on slicks, so Alan's definitely going to answer that.
We're still trying to figure that out. I think our best passes have been made on like 18.5, 19 pounds.
Have you tried 20?
We tried to, yeah. Well, actually, this past week when we were at 131 for a rental, we were at 20 because it seemed to like it on the hotter track temps, and we went up to 20, and we were able to replicate what we were doing in Bristol. Because in Bristol we did the only difference between Bristol and what we did last week was tire pressure, and everything else was exactly the same. The tune up, the launch RPM, try to drive it the same, blah blah blah, and we went 880s in both scenarios, and the DA was upper 2000s, and then in the case last week it was 3100. So I think we got a tune up on the radios now that we can go anywhere and get down a little bit at least.
Yeah.
So,
The only reason why I asked about the air pressure if you went up is because I was wondering you're out of valving, and I wonder if you're hitting the tire too hot and it's flattening out the bottom of the radial
mhm.
with too low of air pressure, causing it to wrap around itself and start spinning.
Yeah, no, that's
100. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
The one time I got the test on a tight track before we come here, the last pass I made, that it shook the tires. I think I have too little pressure in there, and it wadded the tire up. And that's why it shook them. So.
Yep. And yeah, we're still green on the radials. We're working on it. Definitely not experts by any means. So yeah, I mean, like what you just said, Daniel and Zach, I mean, that's probably what we incurred too. Maybe the car likes 20 pounds. I mean, we'll be at SCT this weekend at 131. We're going to give it a shot, and, you know, we'll revert back to our Bristol tune up here for the first couple hits, and then, you know, try to advance from there. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for more pressure. If it goes down, I mean, the car's stable, it goes straight. You know, it's much happier. So
I will say, when going from a slick to a radial, it's like riding down your grandma's car down the street. It's smooth. There ain't no more sway. It ain't no more drama.
I freaking hate slicks. I've done it one time, never again. I cannot stand that feeling up top. It's eerie. I mean, if you've never done it, it really does. It feels different. So what kind of air are you running your tires there, Alan?
I'll run 12 to 12.5. That seems to be the happy spot. You go any below that and you're hitting the tire hard, it'll actually flatten the tire out and you bounce it off the rim, and you'll create a secondary suspension event. So instead of you thinking it's the car's rebounding too fast, it's just basically it's blowing through the tire. So, and it'll unload the suspension immediately, probably within 3 feet of the line, maybe 2. So if you go, you know, really much lower than 12.5, especially on a 10-inch rim, it's gonna start doing weird stuff for you. So
yeah.
See, a lot of people get confused, I think, and they always try to just keep lowering air pressure when they start spinning, and they don't pay attention to what's really going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you really need to get a GoPro out and see it in slow motion. It really tells a whole lot.
Yeah, even if you're on a slick on a really tight track, don't be scared to pump pressure up 14, 15 PSI.
Right. Exactly. Bring it up.
Yeah.
Until I remember back Mod Nationals 18. We started experimenting with pressure because the track was tight and we had a good day. Car kept getting faster. We're up to 15.5 pounds, and it was and loved it. So don't be scared, especially on a tight track. Bring it up.
Yeah, exactly right there through a Whipple. It's the air. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to the next. We got the bar angle from the lower control arm and the upper control arms.
I'll let Zach and Alan get in on this one. I'll sit this one out.
Sounds good.
Oh, no.
I don't know. You're the one with the relocated lowers.
I know. Doing what y'all are telling me to do. I'm a dummy.
Yeah, me and Brian are basically running the same racecraft brackets on the lower. The only real difference between us, I believe, is I'm running the UPR adjustable stock spring pocket, so I can run a 2.5-inch spring.
Yeah.
I have a little bit more height adjustment, a little bit more spring rate options, and he's running the Team Z1, which he ran into a little bit more issue of getting his ride height right because of the actual size of the spring.
Yep.
But I'm not running as aggressive as him of anti-scot right now. I think I'm running around 124 to 130% ish. I forgot how high you said you got yours, Brian.
So when we were this picture that we got back here, this was just when I put everything together. When I first measured it at the middle bolt, when I had it up in the middle bolt, it was like, I think 133 or something based off my, loose measurements. So, and based off the videos from the first time we were out in a radial, I actually raised it up one because we felt it was hitting the tires too hard. And so I have yet to re-measure everything, but we're up on the first bolt here now on my car.
Yeah, I'm on the highest one as well.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So
I've got these brackets in the garage too, so I'm tracking.
Gotcha. So you guys, if you want to check your anti-squat or whatever, Baseline actually has a really good calculator to be able to do that. Just go over and get your measurements off of, so you'll know. But typically, the lower the bar angle on the back of the car, it's going to hit the tire harder. The further up, it's going to hit it less as hard. And then when you go down, go ahead, Zach.
the real goal with these brackets is you want to get that your lower bar level with the ground, but have a real good angle on your upper bars, because when it extends, it's going to try to straighten that upper bar out, and it's going to extend to that upper bar straightens, and that's all the extensions you're going to get. So that's the goal, is to get that your lower bar level and have the car low enough that you have a good steep angle on that upper bar.
Exactly. So raising and lowering the car will actually dictate some of the bar angle, and you got to pay attention to that. If you raise it up too much and you don't have the adjustable lowers, then the bottom bar is going to get out of whack. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Yep.
So if you run the bottom hole on the lowers, typically you're going to run your rebound tighter because the car is going to mechanically have leverage. And then you're also going to run more compression to keep that tire in the ground. Because if not, it's going to do like Alan was talking earlier. It's going to rebound off the ground and bounce back up into the fender well. Yep. So you got to have that there.
Yep.
Now, on a slick car, I'm assuming, do y'all still run the bottom bar straight, or are y'all running it up at an angle on the back side?
Perfectly level. Mine is perfectly level. So.
Level, and the ride height was much higher too. Like I said, because you want to try to keep the rear end neutral. That's the goal.
Even on a slick, so you got it raised up so the top bars are actually still coming down on a slick as well?
No, when I was running slick, I was in the stock location, no relocation brackets. That came with the radials. So
I'm talking about the top upper control arm though.
No, yeah, the bottom bar was level and the upper bar was almost level. Like I said, it was like right. Yep. My car did not separate; it stayed neutral.
Yeah, mine doesn't separate. I know Brian's car, even though his car is pretty low, it would separate at times. It would hit the tire super hard. Mine stays pretty level, so it does what it's advertised to do. So
back early on with the slicks, before I started really paying attention to suspension and starting to get it right, my lower bar angle, Alan, we talked about this maybe like a year and a half ago. But it was the other way. My front bar measurement was lower than my rear bar measurement. It was like kitty wampus. It wasn't even right, and we're going low 1.3s in some cases with it. And I was like, "Fuck it, it works."
Exactly. Yeah, don't change it. If it works, don't change it.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. But now with the radial, you got to be a little bit more picky with some of this stuff. It just upsets the tires too much, and it takes a little bit more detail. So
what spring are y'all running on the back of these cars? What spring rate?
Team Z stock location. I'm not sure on the spring rate. Me and Alan both got them, and Zach's got them too.
I'm running 12 175 2.5.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. That's right.
It's a coilover style shock or spring,
it's
right?
It's the exact same that you would run on the front if the coilover is 2.5-inch spring, or you can get just about any spring rate you want. I have a 150, 175, and a 200. 200 was too heavy for how heavy the car was. I couldn't get it low enough. Mm-hmm. So right now we're kind of practicing between the 175 and the 150. See which one they likes the best.
So y'all haven't went below 150? Any of you guys? See, I run a 125 on the back of my car.
Okay.
And then I run a 200-pound spring on the front of the car, actually. So
I think if you ask our boy Jason at 1320 Junkie, he'll tell you if you're driving down the road and it ain't riding like it's riding on rocks, it ain't right for a radial. It's got to ride like shit to be right for a radial. So yeah, the lower rate's probably better.
Yeah, he ain't lying. I have to have my shocks in the back at 0-0. If not, it's going to be like you're on a springboard. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember.
Also,
yeah. Go ahead.
The part number for that lower control arm, the lower control arm bracket is 210480 from Racecraft. I did get that. I'll put it in the link later in the description. I mean.
Yeah.
All right, what we got here?
All right, real quick. This is an easy one. Anti-roll bars. With a slick, it's not so important. Well, it's important. You need to have an anti-roll bar, but the anti-roll bar in the picture on the right, the one on the top is the one we ran with the slicks. Ran it forever. We were able to finally get the car to leave straight. Everything was even. But once we got to the radial and we're starting to extend, the anti-roll bar for tailpipes, just not only due to construction, but due to width on the axle, we just felt that it wasn't achieving what we wanted. Because as you can see in the picture on the driver's side, we're separating. Like if you took a video from the driver's side, you'd be like, damn, that bitch is right. And then you go on the passenger side and you're like, what the hell is going on here? It's not separating in the back. So these pictures are from the same exact pass from two different, people taking videos at the same exact time. And you can see that we're not, we're coming down back hard on that passenger side still. So we recently, unfortunately, ditched the tailpipes. I'm still pissed off about it. But that's okay. Ditched the tailpipes, and we ended up going with the billet anti-roll bar from Team Z. And it brings the span out as wide as we can. I think that the original span was like 19.25 inches, and now we're at 24 inches full span. Yes. Went out testing last week, and from what we saw, it definitely helped settle the car down a little bit. This weekend at 131 for SCT, we're going to try to get some better videos to make sure that we're achieving what we're trying to go for. But if you, when it comes to anti-roll bars, when you're especially on a radial, I'm all for the wider span. I think Zach, you're still on the tailpipe one, correct?
Yeah, I'm struggling with it. I got 3 turns of preload in it. I'm still lifting the left tire.
Yep. That's how I was with mine too. In these pictures, I think I was in between 3 and 4 turns of preload, and then if you go on TMZ's install video, they tell you just to turn it 2 flights. So we're on 3-4 full fucking turns. It's still doing it. It's just not enough. So
have y'all tried running different shock settings on each side just to compensate? I know it's not the correct way of doing things, but you tried that?
Yeah, we were going to do that. In this particular case in the event, we found something, even though the car didn't look right, we found something that was getting on the track, so we didn't change anything. We just kept going. But it was definitely a topic of conversation to try to compensate. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely not it's a Band-Aid.
Now, you really don't have that much of an issue with that roll bar, because I think Alan's running the baseline roll bar as well, which is probably about the same wall thickness as the top bar that you have there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing with a slick, you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the issues the width, though. A lot of leverage to be had there with that extra width.
Yeah. Yeah, the slick hides a lot of that too. Like I said, the bar on the top picture, or the top of that picture there, we ran it, all last season on a slick, actually paying attention to the suspension and trying to get it right. And that thing it worked just fine on the slick. The slick hit a lot of stuff with the suspension on this car. We're starting to find out every time out, more and more weaknesses with the suspension, and we're going to cure it eventually. But the radial changed the game for sure.
So nobody's running under the axle ARB.
No, but an under axle is probably the best one.
That's what I'll do with the TRZ probably, but I'm running what is it? Can't even think of it. Is it MMR or something like that? It's the under one. It's anyways, it's got bushings and everything on it, and it does exactly what Brian's car does, but worse. So I would definitely steer clear. I would definitely steer clear of that. Just so you know, if your car's making any kind of power, and that was with me leaving off idle. So if it was stick shift, I'd have probably broken in 2. Just so you know.
And under one, we have a deal with Team Z, and they're local to us, and they support us, we support them. So I was going to go through them. I was going to go through them no matter what. But yeah, if they offered an under one, man, I would jump on it.
Well, you need to tell them to get on that, because I'd buy one too if they did it.
Sure.
So I've got a question here. SVT Troy wants to know, is MTET stiff wall slicks on the IRS Cobra, how would you know when to go up on air on his tires?
Well,
probably when it starts to shake, wheel hop.
Yeah, just
so if it's wheel hopping, you need to go up. I guess if it's wheel hopping, it's an indicator that the tire is trying to wrap around itself and it's bouncing up and down. So best way, in my opinion, is to get you a GoPro or somebody filming it from the side and just watch it and see if it's wrinkling up around itself.
Additionally, too, if you have a consistent launch RPM that you're working off of, and the car is bogging too, and it just feels like it wants more, you can keep the launch RPM the same and bring it up a pound and try that.
Yeah.
It's also another way to get more rollout, but
All right, so that's the Holly, but we're already at an hour and 10 minutes, guys. So
yeah.
I'm gonna let these guys go because Zach's got things to do.
Yeah, he's gotta go race.
They calling stick shift up, so I'm probably about to get ready to hop in the car.
Hey, you go do your thing, Zach, and
Hey, man,
good
good
luck, buddy.
Second
And
shift, baby. Let's go.
Second
See if
shift
we can't
racing, you
bust
can
off
catch.
I never thought I was going to be as excited to just try to run a 990.
That's hilarious. If you guys don't know, he's running Rocky Mountain Race Week. The altitude is absolutely destroying it. I think his car runs 940s, and it's like 10.0 car right now.
We're down 4 pounds of boost and about 10 mile an hour on boost only, and about 6 or 7 tenths.
So he's making atmosphere now with his own atmosphere bottle. He's got
New best
some
friend.
nitrous
New
outlet.
best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good luck to you, bub. And
Yeah, man.
Good luck.
you
Jake.
wanna catch
if
him
anybody's
over on-
interested in watching, bangshiftracing.com is doing a live stream on the race, 3 to 10, pretty much every race day, which will be today, Thursday, and Friday.
yeah, and if you want to catch anything in between, get on Second Shift Racing on Instagram. They're posting up videos and stuff like that in the storyline. Are you guys doing a video too?
Yeah, we're
no?
filming, and when we get back, we'll compose something, have something together.
There you go. So keep an eye out on Second Shift Racing's YouTube channel as well for that. Good luck, man. I'll let you guys go. I appreciate it. It's freaking awesome. Brian, the PowerPoint was on point, buddy.
Yeah.
I guess all these years of being a tech service engineer for a resin company is paid off.
There you go.
Stuff, so.
I'll make sure to get that GoPro under the hood of my car for the belt too.
Absolutely. I definitely want to see that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. And
All
everybody
right.
on the screen, appreciate you tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.